Perfect. All right. So I'm here with Chronocast, fellow Redditor, Stratos in game. Like you were telling me before, a name that you never seem to be able to get on anything, which is something that I can't relate to because Egnards is always available. Actually, when trying to set this up and putting together a Gmail account, Egnards wasn't available. And then I realized that I had taken the name 10 years ago and just never used it. So
Lucky.
that was just me thinking about that. As always, I mean, it's later for me. It's almost 7:15. I always have a drink with me when I do these. I made like a whiskey stout, a blood orange whiskey sour. My
Beautiful.
wife found some Instagram recipe and she wanted to try them. So I've got that with me. I don't know if you're drinking right now. I know you have your daughter with
Coffee.
you. It's earlier, coffee.
I'm a bit of a coffee addict, and I'm kind of abstaining a bit from alcohol till I find a new permanent job. It's sort of a
Got it.
motivator for me to do it. It helps also not to slip into any sort of
That
depressive
happens.
state from being unemployed. But
When I was younger, I remember I got my first apartment and the jump from going from living with your parents to living with someone and having to pay bills. I remember being like a dumbass in my mid-20s and
who wasn't?
my all of us, right? And my first goal, my first thought was, okay, I can pay rent now, but what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna buy 2 bottles of liquor every week
Every
for for when I well, one to drink and like one for when I lose my job, I'll have like a bank, right? I have all of these liquor bottles that I'll have saved up, so that my buddies and I we could still drink and I won't feel bad. Um, and I think that got me into an obsessive nature. Like I don't drink a lot, but I do collect alcohol, and I just am constantly like buying bottles, buying bottles, buying bottles because they look pretty. They look this way. They look that way.
I see the
But
appeal in that. I'd probably be doing that too if I didn't have my wife curbing in things like that. Right after we got married, I was like, "Let's celebrate. I'll go get some alcohol with the gift cards we got for our wedding." And I couldn't decide what to get. And so I literally bought everything that had an interest. I probably spent over $100 on alcohol,
yeah,
which a little over a decade ago was probably went farther than it
which
goes
is
today. But
much cheaper.
she was so upset. She marched me back and made me return it all. Can we at least keep the one? No, that's your punishment for being so stupid. I don't even know why I bought it all. I was like, I could just buy one and come back later, but I don't
I
know.
think our wives rein us in, right? Like there's all these stupid things that we
Yeah.
would do, and they go, "Are you an idiot? Like what? You need to think a little bit." And I think I would be more obsessive if I weren't married
Yeah.
or if I were single right now.
Is your wife a
Um,
neat freak or a tidy person that likes to do all that?
um, yeah, she's in the other room, so I'm gonna like not be super
Well, I don't
loud.
mean that in a negative
No, no,
way. I I never
no.
mean anything in a negative way unless it's like I'm giving you grief, teasing you. But
I think I've always been a clean person, and when I lived with my buddy, it was on the outside. We'd have people come over, and they'd be like, "Hey, is this your house? It looks like a crack den." And like my room would be the only room in this house that was clean, and it was attached to the main entrance. And people would walk in and be like, "Oh wow, this is nice," and then they'd walk into the living room and be like, "Oh my god, this is shit." So I think I've always been a clean person, but she's definitely like 3 steps ahead of me. So I'll do something and she'll, no, let me do it. You missed that little speck, or it's not
yeah,
the wrinkle isn't perfect. So it's a team effort for us, but she's
it's a
definitely
process.
she's a little
Yeah.
bit more than I am.
Yeah, if
Um,
if if she weren't reining me in, there'd be a whole lot more Legos on the wall. And the camera doesn't pick up. I've got some of the big sets over there and some I haven't even opened in the garage that are I love doing that, but I struggle with where to put it. Like my shelf, I'd love it
oh
to be
God,
nice, but I'm always stumped on where do I put this? Where do I put that? And my wife's like, just work on one shelf at a time. It's like, I can't. It's a whole
is
system. If I mess with one shelf, I got to mess with another, and it's a whole process. I need a whole day
it,
or two.
is that like a TV console behind you? I forgot what they call
No,
them, like the big.
they're the IKEA shelf. It's actually two
Yeah,
of those
the
big Billy shelves,
Billy
but
the bookcase. I have 4 of them.
these
Yeah.
I screwed those in from a different IKEA shelf that was like a
Okay.
very slim um, like two little shelves that are thin with shelves that cross over, and I
Okay.
stole those shelves, bolted them to them, and the idea
To the
was I'd
Billy.
have a Lord of the Rings display up there and a Star Wars one down here. Unless I'm interviewing for a professional job, then I put
And
my
then you just
my wife, my kids smiling to hire me. I have a family to support.
you take all the DVDs and you put all of the books and like all of the yeah.
Yeah.
Um, I wish like I have because I teach martial arts and I have like all my this is our office. My wife works from home. I have like all my certificates up on the wall, so I kind of have it tilted in a bad angle where you can't see. But like, so my nerd obsession
Oh,
is like
fun.
Mega Man, right? And I've got like all of that stuff going on in my house. And when Amiibos first came out, I bought. I don't know if you remember when those things. Are you going to get some?
Oh yeah. I got one. My collection isn't as nice as it used to be, but that's uh that's just Link
That's one of the newer. I stopped
or
collecting them a
Zelda.
long time ago.
That's
Um,
probably the one of the last sets I did get when they came out. Yeah, I was the same thing. I convinced my parents to go wait in line for me at a Target for some of them, and now I'm like, why did I care so much about some of these? I got caught up in the FOMO, and it's like, okay, I like a
that was
couple
it.
of them, but some of the others are cool to look at, but I don't need them. So I give them out. Like I've given like 6 or 7 to my nephew, my niece. I've mailed
Yeah,
some out to some friends as surprise gifts
little gifts. I
because they're some of them are real rare and semi valuable, but not enough for me to want to put it out. Like I don't need $20-$30 off a single. At least I'm not that desperate, even though I'm unemployed.
I
My wife still works, but
it's the same thing. Like they first came out, and I said, "Oh, I'm gonna get like the two or three guys. I like Samus from playing Smash Brothers, and I'm a Mega Man fan. I'm gonna get these two or
yeah,
three." And I did like I'd be on GameStop or I'd be on Best Buy, and I'd be buying like every single one. But then what I eventually did is I'd go on like the Amiibo subreddits,
yeah.
and I was trading. So I would trade like something rare, like a pit, for like
Hmm.
5 Mega Man amiibos. And
Fuck,
I
are you doing
like five.
customs or something?
So what you probably didn't see, right, is like I got into like
Oh,
customs, and I have
nice.
like Ash Ketchum. I did some supposed to be Hamilton or Ben
Oh,
Franklin. Where's my favorite one?
what do
My
you get?
cats have
Shakespeare.
ruined all of these. So one of my first ones I did was George Washington. Um, and he's a red coat because I just thought it'd be more fun than painting blue on blue.
It's
And
it's
I just got
pre-Revolutionary War, right?
that's what I put it on the subreddit, and people were like, "That's not George Washington. It's red." And I was like, "No, no, he was in the army." Like I looked it up. Like, um, but I got like really real. I'm not great at it. Like if like real artists, they look at it and they go, "Oh, thin your paints." But it was fun.
It's an
That's what I
activity.
did. And
You don't have to be
it,
good at it. They looked fine to me. They're I'd be happy to have something like that on my shelf if I were as big in Mega Man. So
that's where all of it went. And then some of them, I mean, I had a few that were pretty valuable. I think I sold some for like $40 or $50, but that's what it came down to is I don't need these. I don't know why I have these. I'm not a huge Diddy Kong fan. Like his games are fine, but I'm not like crazy, into it.
I'm not gonna pose his little figure on my shelf.
Exactly. And I kept them all like in their cases. And
Hmm.
but I was growing up, that's what I do with my Star Wars figures. Like they were all on my door, and I'd put the thumbtacks in the little hook, and I'd like hang them up, and because I was just as obsessive as a kid as I am now.
I never kept things, I think, in the original package, but I kept the original packaging. Like some of the old Star Wars figures, they had like the card, like the profile card on the back that you could cut out.
Hmm.
I cut them out and I
You
kept
cut
them in
them
a
all
little
out.
file drawer thing. And I was like, I can refer to these whenever I need to talk to my friends about Star Wars facts. It's
because
pre-internet, so
because we didn't have the internet.
who's gonna argue with me? And I know all the Star Wars lore there is. And then my wife or my sister back in the day was like, "Oh, really? Then who was like Han Solo's father?" And all this crap, and put me in my place for Star Wars
Like
knowledge.
I don't
Nobody
I
knows
don't, I
that.
don't know. It
Well, then you
wasn't in
don't know
the
everything.
It wasn't in the Han Solo trilogy that
No,
I remember.
no.
Um,
Oh, Han Solo trilogy, not the movie. You're referring to the old
no,
books. Okay.
the old books. I don't get
Yeah.
really big into the extended universe, and I was joking with Kazgul and a few other people. Like I'm a nerd. Like I have like my gaming setup, and I have like my nerd stuff. And I was a big Star Wars fan growing up, but I never had time to really get into the expanded universe. So I've read
Yeah.
the Han Solo trilogy, and I read Plagueis recently. But other than that, I
You like Plagueis? Because that's one I've missed out on that a lot of people rave about.
people love it. I thought it was kind of like businessy, and I should like that, right? Like,
Hmm.
but it felt like okay. So there's this podcast I listened to. What the fuck is it called? My dad wrote a porno. I don't know if you ever heard of it. It's really funny.
That's the name of the podcast.
It's my dad wrote a porno, and it's about this old English guy who's retired who just started writing like porn books,
Huh.
and he got them self-published, and his son found them, and he brought his friends together, and every week he would read a chapter, and they were the worst. But it was about business too, right? It was like this girl succeeding in business, but also like this whole porn aspect to it. The book is called Belinda Blinked. If you ever want to buy it, I have it on my bookshelf. It's
Hmm.
hilarious. My wife loves the podcast too. We think it's the funniest thing in the world. But it was very businessy at first. So the first like book, because there's six of them, they'd be talking about like spreadsheets and charts and this and that, and it'd be like really boring. Really, I don't fucking care. I don't care. It's supposed to be porn, and I don't read porn. Like but like the premise, right, of this podcast. That's what Plagueis reminded me of.
Hmm.
It was just like I'm waiting for Plagueis to take over the world. I'm waiting for him to become a Sith Lord, and I'd be dealing with Coruscant like balancing his checkbook.
Sounds like the complaints about episode one and the prequels. I was like, no more talk of trade federation, trade route disputes.
Oh my
And
god,
then Force Awakens comes out and people are like, where are my trade disputes?
that's my god. That's like the thing with these. Like, I grew up at a time. I don't know how old you are. I'm 36. I think I was the perfect age for that stuff. Um, so when I watched Phantom Menace for the first time, I was like, oh, this is cool. There's lightsabers, right? Like there's aliens. I don't know, 12, 13. Like this is great. Whereas my older brother, who's 10 years older than me, is like, this is the stupidest thing I've ever seen. I hate this. And I'm the biggest Star Wars fan in the world. But I think like even with the sequel trilogy, 10 years from now, all of the little kids are gonna be like, oh my God, that's my Star Wars. Like I love it. Like The Last Jedi is the greatest movie in the world. And
I'm not
they're
sold it's gonna have the same renown as say the prequels have gotten. Maybe because they take themselves too seriously. The prequels, you can almost see where Lucas had his whimsy still in it, had the fantasticalness of it. And so I think there definitely will be a niche following for the sequels
yeah.
eventually, as much as I despise them. I'm one of those people that I was into the EU. I was in
Hmm.
second, third grade, I was reading the Thrawn trilogy.
See, I've
I
never read the original. Do you read both of them? Do you read the old one and the new one?
I have all of the new, because I love Zahn as an
Hmm.
author, Timothy Zahn.
Yes. Yeah.
And so I was like, I buy his books, or I try to buy his books to support him.
Hmm.
But I've started like two chapters into the first one of his new Thrawn books, and I'm horrible at finishing books now. I'm at a stage in my life where I can't
Where
focus
you
on them
can't
as
do it.
much,
Hmm.
and because of a kid, because of I don't know what stage I'm life in my end. So I'm trying to be better at that. That's my New Year's resolution. I started back with the OG Thrawn books. I'm going to read those three, and then I'm going to go
To get
back and
pumped.
actually finish them, because I need to finish those books that I buy. Half these books I haven't even read.
That's
So
why because I don't have a lot of time, most of my reading is done on my phone, right? And I prefer a physical book, but
yeah.
most of it's done like on my lunch break or like at night, 10 o'clock at night. And
Hmm.
I can't. Um, so I've read the new Thrawn books, and I read I guess there's six of them. right? There's the three that take place now and the three that are prequels to that.
Yeah, there's the three that I think take place just before Rebels, and
I don't
then
know the timeline, but I know that they take like they're like the refresher on the old trilogy,
yeah,
like the idea.
the at least the first of those three new ones, that first trilogy, so to speak, a lot of reviewers said that they actually fit both into the old canon
Hmm.
books of Thrawn and the new canon Thrawn.
Interesting.
Like Zahn was very either he was intentional or he just did such a good job with it as the author of the original that they you can imagine them as both. And so I'm like, do I start with those or do I start with the originals if I'm trying to jumpstart my reading adventure, so to speak? And I decided on the originals for that. But,
So that's one of the things. Like after reading the trilogy, I was like, man, Thrawn's awesome,
mhm.
right? Like I read them and I like them. So I'm curious if I should go back and even though they don't count, or maybe they do and they're adjacent. If I should go back and read those ones because I don't only read sci-fi, but I
Mhm.
look for things every once in a while.
Yeah. It I would. They're phenomenal in their own right. Zahn, most of Timothy Zahn's works are excellent on their own
Hmm.
standalone nature. It's not like, oh, this is only really good because of the Star Wars license. Like I noticed that with a lot of
Yeah.
authors. As a kid, I read Star Wars because it's Star Wars, and I'm supposed to like Star Wars until I hit Tanya Vonder or somebody. The Crystal Star is a notorious one if you Google it that everyone
Okay.
hated, and I did not. That was the first one where in my book report, I love all Star Wars books. I did not like this book. Like my teacher in fifth grade or whatever grade it was literally floored and came to talk to me about why was it I did not like this one book because I guess I was so well known for loving everything
For
Star
how
Wars and that broke me. But
that's when the rose tinted glasses
yeah,
came off.
but I found certain authors are really good. Not it's like Galaxy of Heroes. Oh, half the reason we love this game is because of Star Wars, not because it's a top-notch quality game. It's the Star Wars
I
brand
will
that draws most of us in.
I will say that it definitely is what drew me in, right? And why
Hmm.
I downloaded it. Um, but now that we get into like the EU and all these characters, and half the time I don't know who they are until I Google them and then I research them because I'm meticulous like that. Now I've played I've played the Lord of the Ring game and I've played Marvel and I've played like a Final Fantasy one. I've played all these different ones. They're all money grubbing shit, right? But
Yeah,
it's not a bad game. CG. They disrespect our time sometimes, a lot of time, all the time.
yeah.
But it's not that bad a game. Like I don't hate it as much as people think that I do.
I think it's got good bones, maybe like those home improvement shows. Oh, this house has good bones, but we need to
Yeah.
tear down the walls and repaint and change the floor. And I think Swugga has good bones. There's a good framework there, and as long as you're not being taken to the cleaners by some of those exploitative packs, it's actually
Yeah.
can be very generous. Like I I I started free to play. I spent a little bit here and there when I returned to the game in February 2021, when we were in the hospital for my daughter to be born. I was looking for something to just entertain my time, and
Hmm.
I think Mando stuff had just hit the game, and Mando season 2 had just dropped, which was a big highlight for me. So, I'm gonna go back see how this game is again, and
Like, see
then I
what's
got into my
changed.
guild.
It's
Yeah, it's fascinating because I played pre-protection, which is
yes, early,
really
early,
hard
early.
to remember that now, and that was
Well,
one
that's
of the
like when
fun things with the Lord of the Rings one because they don't have, at least I don't think they still have. I stopped playing that, but
I did.
you
I
know,
did.
it's yeah, that's a whole can of worms. I wanted it to succeed. I actually liked the art style because I'm along with sci-fi Star Wars, I'm a big Tolkien fantasy fan. And I actually really adore some of the old art styles that are seen in some of the books, some of the other
Hmm.
portrayals. I was a big fan of the old PS2, Xbox, GameCube Hobbit game that had a
I
very
never played
almost
Hobbit.
it's
What was the
it's a
good
Zelda
the one that
like.
was what was the one that was really good? Was that Two Towers that was really, or
Two
was it
Towers
Return
and
of
then
the
Return
King?
of the King. They're both hand in hand. They were sequels. Two Towers was great and it's a tight single player game, but Return of the King
Yes.
added the 2-player co-op, which was amazing, and more
Yes.
character. It's basically what you'd want from a sequel. Both games are great, but one sort of like Mario Brothers 3 versus Mario World, maybe in a sense, where they're
Yeah.
both
Yeah.
great. One explodes in a different
One just
way.
figures it out a little bit
Yeah.
more. I
So,
played for like 3 months, and what I found myself doing, even though I was a brand new player and I didn't really care that much, and I knew I was going to probably quit in a month or two, like I was doing all these farms and I was taking data on them, right? Like I was taking
just
data
in
on
case.
everything, just in case. And I got to a point where I was like, I can't do both. Like I cannot spend the time on both. Like it's ridiculous the amount of time that
Hmm.
I'm spending between these two, and I don't have the time for it.
Yeah, I sometimes wonder how I squeeze the time in that I have for all this stuff. And it's people are like, why don't you start a second account? I'm obsessive enough that
God.
if I did, I actually ran 3 accounts when I used to play Pokemon Go. And I think that was easier because it's more tight in what its focus is. And
Yeah.
you're running
I
around sort of concurrently playing them. What one was mine, one was my alt, and one was my wife's that I kind of half ran for her because she just wanted to do community days and big raids. And so I kind of just pruned her account and made
You
sure it
got
was
all
ready
of the
for
hard
those.
work done so she could do
Yeah.
those things.
So I'd take the 3 phones, like 2 old phones and mine, and I would go to the park sometimes and I'd hit the big raids with just those 3 accounts. But that I with Star Wars, there's this with Swoga, there's too many moving parts to be able to do that
Yes.
efficiently and run a guild, which I've been co-running a guild since I returned. That's kind of half the
It's
reason I'm still in the game is because of my guild. I came in, I was like, well, I got to find a guild if I want to do the raids while I'm just playing around with everything. I randomly picked one, SFB, which the founder doesn't even remember what SFB stands for. It was some gamer tag they came up with him and his buddies years ago. And so we call it ships first, bro, because our ships almost always trounce everyone else's. There's these counts where they've got 30, 40, 50 GLs more than us, and our fleets just overwhelm them. So that's what we call it now. But he saw I was an experienced player in this brand new baby guild him and his friends started. They couldn't even do the OG Rancor. And I had
yeah.
done the OG Rancor and the tank and Sith. And so I came in, he's like, I know you know what the heck you're talking about. So he made me an officer immediately. Like, I didn't ask for this. I didn't want to be responsible. And
It's
now look, he's passed on the reins to me because he's retired from the game, and I'm in charge of a rather successful from the ground up. February 2021, we started with nothing, and now we're 350 million. We're getting 24, 25 stars in Rise. We're just about to break the 208 box in Endor. I'm, I rant a bit too much about my guild because I love what they've done. Because a lot of
yeah.
these are OG, longtime players that are like, we could go to these big guilds. We've got
Hmm.
Riva ready people. We get 4 or 5 Riva shards. Well, more this year, hopefully. But people are like, you should leave. But none of us
But
do
it's
because
more
we
about the
love it.
community. You
Yeah.
know, I had somebody this morning. I obviously people, not everybody knows me, but people know me, and like they see my name. Like in GAC today, somebody messaged me and they're like, "Oh my god, are you Egnards? Is this the
Yeah.
Egnards?" So somebody messaged me this morning on Discord, and this is the first time this has happened to me. They're like, "Hey, you should join my guild." Um, and Mike, I mean, we're pretty much towards the end game. You know, we're 545 mil, 37
Hmm.
stars, and they were trying to give me all of these like reasons why I should leave. I'm like, "Oh, you would be great, like 11 million account. I like your account. Like we do 38, we do the 408 box on the thing, and we do Zepho." And I was trying to explain to them like the difference between you and me is that I want to do things as little as possible, right?
Hmm.
Like if I join you guys, I have to like actually pay attention to things, and I have to do the raid manually, and I have to do this, and I have to do like I don't give a crap about getting like an extra 1,000 get
Hmm.
tokens or anything. Like I
Right.
want to spend as little time. I want to spend more time like talking to people, like doing this with
Hmm.
you, or helping people, and doing the roster reviews for people, and being on Discord, or not Discord, Reddit, and like doing the break. I like that stuff.
Hmm.
And I was trying to explain this to this person today. Like I don't care that you can get me more things.
Yeah.
I'm good. Like I'm fine. I don't need all of those things. I'm happy where I am. If I put my account somewhere, I'm sure someone will sweep me
Hmm.
up, but I don't want that.
There's also a double-edged sword to that. Yeah, you could, even if you're willing to put in the time, you could, but there's expectations and obligations. We had one guy, he's an officer in our guild. I think he's one of the higher performers, wants to perform better, which is great. He motivates us to be better, but he wanted more. And so he
Yeah.
actually did go to one of those high guilds, and he didn't last a weekend before he's like, guys, I think I made a big mistake. Can I please come back? And yeah, you wanted to do something, everyone's free to go. We're not a dictatorship
Yeah.
here. And he came back, and I think he appreciates a lot more what we are, because I call us casual core. Um,
Okay. So
because
we're similar. I call it
yes,
competitive casual, but
I
same
I
concept.
like that, because I think in some of the Nintendo forums I've swum around in, there was always debate about hardcore versus casual, and sort of the phrase casual core popped up occasionally, which is why
Mhm.
I like that phrase, because we are laid back. What I generally tell people is we have an absence channel. If you post anything there, I don't care what you do. You could commit
Yeah.
a crime, and not literally, you could get away with the game equivalent of murder, and in terms of participation. And as long as you preemptively or even posthumously say, sorry, I can't make it
Yeah.
because of life, I don't even need a reason. Just say, hey, life hit me. I can't do this. Then you can get away with anything within
That's
reason. If you're out for like
yes.
2 weeks, then but most everyone at that point is going to come. I had a guy come to me today saying, hey, life's getting too rough. I don't think I'm going to be involved in the game for a couple of weeks or a couple of months. Should I quit? And I'm not going to force anyone to stick around if they don't want to be in the game. So,
Yeah.
but at the same time, we want to perform. If you don't do anything, it's like, dude, at the very least, in like in TB, I try to run TB similar to, I think, how you probably do, minus as much of a focus on the missions, because I don't think we're at that level as a guild to be able to
Hmm.
do that, other than the higher end ones, which I do what I can there. But my idea is I'm always going to have a planet open unless we're literally hitting a hard cap where we can't go over anything. When in
Yes.
doubt, just deploy. As long as you deploy your junk, I kind of don't care. I mean, I do, but for your situation, I won't worry as long
We're
as
we're
you're
very
doing it.
we're very similar. I mean, we're the top of an alliance. I'm not really an alliance person, which I shouldn't say, just in case three people in it actually see this. But I'm not. We're the top of an alliance, and what'll happen is people will say, "Hey, I'm going to be gone for like a month," and the way that I see it, as long as you leave on good terms and you respect my time, you're welcome
Yeah.
back, right? Like, so the
Hmm.
same thing with your guild officer. If you give me a heads up of like 2 days and you say, "Hey, do this, do that," but I'm leaving, I'll find you another spot if you need another spot. You
Hmm.
can retire if you need to retire. The moment you come back, I don't care how many people are in my waiting list to
Hmm.
come into the guild, which is usually not a lot. You go right to the top. Like you're the next
Yeah.
person in. I always value someone that was respectful. I always value someone that was already part of the guild and knows how things work. As long as you don't
Yeah.
just quit one day and leave us hanging, I don't
Yeah.
care. Like uh, it's
Hmm.
communication, you
We
know.
have a flare called Friends of the Guild in our Discord, and it I've got probably 20 people in there that have left on good terms, either because they've quit the game or decided they wanted to move on to another guild. It's like, but you know what? You're leaving on good terms if you ever want to come back. We used to have a bit of I wouldn't say a name for ourselves in the wider community, but we almost branded ourselves as a home for semi-retired whales, because we
Yeah.
ended up with 4, 5, 6 whales, and I credit some of our early success to that, who are like, I'm in one of these top guilds, I'm exhausted, can I like you because I've interacted, or one guy was one of those mercs that came in to help us back in the day,
At one point, yeah.
and so they're like, can I come here work? And we're like, yeah, don't worry about tickets, get what you can, but as long as you join TW, so we get to the higher reward bracket, we don't even care if you do anything.
Yeah.
As long as you just deploy when you can in TV, then we're fine. And we had 4 or 5 of them. Some of them eventually are like, I want the nicer thing, you're a bit too casual now. And some quit the game. The one that hurt was our one cam owner, who decided to retire, hand his account to his kid, who didn't want anything to do with our guild. Actually, maybe he didn't want us to be involved with his kid, But
I've seen what you guys post on
some
Discord.
some of our some of our some of our rowdy members are definitely rowdy. We're pretty, I think, positive, but people with their kids, you don't want to risk anything.
Absolutely.
Um, but he had our one cam, and so we're camless. That was pre-rise, and so now, we've got like a dozen of us rushing madly to cam because I think it's our one crippling point keeping us from even more stars. Because whenever I check, we're always on the very top tier of like stars per GP ratio.
Yeah,
We've
yeah.
always been at the top. We were
I
we
don't
were
remember who
hitting.
tracks that,
I don't remember who, but
but I
it
know,
pops
like,
up.
I do look at it
Yeah,
every once in a while.
and when we were hitting 2021 stars, we were higher than most others. I think we had the highest 22 star for lowest GP. Like we were sub 300 hitting. I don't 100% remember the numbers. I
It,
don't
it,
know.
it, it's, I mean, I do two things for my guild. I do their territory battles, and I do
Yeah.
recruiting. And some people like it, some people hate it, but I am an active recruiter, so I do look for
Hmm.
people in guilds, unfortunately, like yours, who are way higher than they should be, and I hear
Yeah.
it all the time. I'm very respectful. I give them one message. They say, "Hey, I'm happy," and I go, "Cool, good luck."
Yeah.
Um, but I hear all the time, like, "Hey, I used to be in a guild like yours, but I just needed something else right now. I needed
Hmm.
something more relaxed right now," and I get that message a lot. And I go,
Hmm.
great, you do you. Like, I'm not in my business. I don't hard sell people in the game. I don't hard sell people on Reddit. I try not to hard sell people, but I feel like sometimes people think that I'm trying to hard sell them.
On like
Um,
joining the guild.
no, on anything,
Oh,
like with
no.
with
Yeah.
with any of my posts or things that I say, or responses to them, and they think I'm trying to tell
Hmm.
them to play a different way. I'm like, I'm not. I don't care how you play. I just want you to understand the most efficient way. And
Hmm.
if you don't want that, that's fine. Like,
There's a
that's
better
totally.
way, and there's like neither way is necessarily bad, but one's going to be the more efficient path. It may
Once
not
more
work for
efficient,
you,
right?
but those different things happen. Just like, sure, I could have gone ages ago to a higher end guild and probably already have Riva, have all sorts of other stuff, but I don't think I'd have nearly as much satisfaction in the game, and I would have quit. But
I don't think I was actually looking through our conversation before we did this today, because I know you had reached out to me about like a roster review
yeah.
in mid-December. And I don't think I had said this to you, but I've been trying to say this to people more recently when I give them like the whole breakdown of like everything. I'll say like, hey guys, just listen, I'm giving you like the mid-tier or big tier goals, but if you're happier branching off and doing something smaller in between, like, I'm not
Hmm.
telling you not to. Like, if
Right.
that's what's going to keep you having fun, do it. Like, I don't.
Yeah.
I'm just giving you the path of least resistance.
Hmm.
And if you want to go to the grocery store or to the movies in between, like, do it.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not.
And I think some people maybe go to you and they're probably like, please tell me what to do. I don't know what to do. And then they take your word as law. I have to do this because Egnards said I have to do it. And you're 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 giving us something, and there's like, what is it? People say like there's the letter of the law and the spirit of the law. And
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
people are taking you too literally when, take what you want, get and adapt it to your own needs. And I came to you, I think it was pretty clear. I already had a good idea of where I wanted to go, but I was looking for
Yeah.
an experienced sounding board to say, hey, does this sound right to you? Is it too much? Is there something I'm missing? And so I think what you suggested was pretty close to what I already was looking for. But it's like, oh, this is a guy I see a lot of on Reddit. He's real knowledgeable. I appreciate his view. And so
Yeah.
that's one of the reasons I came to you, just to get that outside of my guild feedback. Because as truthful as my guild will be, sometimes I feel like they're not giving me 100% straight what they want.
I think a lot of times, and now I say this, and I guess it's maybe slightly hypocritical because, well, actually, maybe not, because this isn't technically streaming. This is a pre-recorded just video that we're doing for fun. I'm not
Yeah.
streaming a game. I'm not streaming whatever. But they look at guys like Arnold or anybody else, and as much as on the subreddit, I say like I don't watch his shit. I have had conversations with him, very small conversations, and he's a nice guy, but he's an entertainer. And I think people take his he's like the Barnum and Bailey of the game, right? Like he's
Hmm.
the big circus and everybody's there to see him and they see his stuff and they go, "Oh, what he says is law."
Hmm.
And they just repeat it, but they don't understand it, right? Like they
Yeah.
don't know why they're saying it. They don't know why he's saying it. They don't know what's going on. They just go, "Lord Failure," right? Like they'll just go, "Oh, Lord Vader, he sucks, Lord Failure."
Hmm.
But they don't understand the circumstance. And I hopefully try to get people to understand the circumstance and kind of teach them to fish and say, "Hey, this is, the reason why I say this, or this is the reason why I think this, and you can disagree with me if you want, and
Hmm.
I don't know who's right and I don't know who's wrong, but that's my view."
Yeah. Yeah,
So
and I enjoy a lot of those streamers' point of views. Sometimes they're inspiring. Arnold's fun. Arnold is he's a blast to watch. He's a top tier entertainer, and I don't think that subtracts from his knowledge of the game or his ability at the game, but he's at a different point. He like some people point out he purposely probably fails or draws out
yeah, yeah,
failures for the entertainment value. He's in a top tier guild, so what his recommendations are for GAC or TW may absolutely not apply to some of the people watching the show.
hmm,
Yeah, yeah, I see people in some like Gerbil. I'm a big fan of the Gerbil's work, and I see a
yeah.
lot of people popping on his sub, and I almost have to check myself. I guess check my I don't know what you said. Check my guild game experience because some of these people are like, oh my gosh, these people are new baby players, and they're asking
It's
from a
so
new
different
baby player, and it's like when they're talking about is Raven's Claw a great shiv? I was like, I love it, but I don't think it's great for you
for what
maybe,
you're
but
doing.
when they've got a home one strategy where they're building that up and taking first, it works for them. And I have to remember, oh yeah, these people aren't all higher level.
Well, a good example of that for me is like Ray, right? Like in
Yeah.
my tier of Galactic Legends, she's at the very bottom.
Hmm.
Um, but as a higher tier player, I have access to like Cal Kestis and I have access to Ben Solo, which makes her a much
Yeah.
better tool for me. Um, and when I see on like the discords and the Reddit, sometimes everyone's like, "Oh, Ray is so great. What are you talking about?" Not when you're 3 million and can't get Ben Solo,
Yeah.
right? Or Cal Kestis isn't like the smartest move for you to make. Like, yeah, she's great now when you are able to prioritize those materials to these things that maybe aren't necessarily important to
Hmm.
someone who is getting their first Galactic Legend or their second Galactic Legend. Um, and I do think that it's a great point because people forget that,
Hmm.
like it's something that they don't rationalize or they don't
Yeah.
think about like what the experience is at different points of the game.
A GL is a GL. Yeah, at least in a lot of these streamers when they do their tier lists, like I know Arnold's I just recently watched, um, he had a whole GL tier when he was
Yeah,
like rating them, and I was like, even it's like that joke. Okay, you were the like voted for most underrated game of the year. Is it really underrated if it won first of the most underrated
yeah,
category? And so, yeah, maybe Lord Failure is a failure, but he's still something I have to take seriously on the wall. I can't just throw crap at him and win. I don't have a Fennec up and running, so I can't use that counter.
I don't either.
I usually have to two-man Lord Vader or two-man Jabba. Those are ones I usually have to double do, or JMK if they have the cap. So, those are automatic two team on my part, but Ray I can take care of because I just throw Star Killer at her even with Ben and she just falls
I
over.
I two kill everything because I turtle all my
I
Galactic
I don't
Legends.
I don't turtle. I can't I guess I can't turtle. I It doesn't
You
feel
get
right
you get to
for
a
me to turtle.
for, for
I do 50-50 is what I do. So I always put like half my GLs or half my good teams on defense, half on
yeah.
offense. And I can either full clear the opponent or I can usually clear one wall and I'll beat them. And I've beaten ones with 2-3 GLs more than me
Yeah.
because they aren't as efficient at doing it. I'm pretty good at the efficiency game when I can sit down and focus. if I got a little gremlin screaming on my shoulder. Once she did cost me a battle, but she was being cute, and so I don't fault her on that. I don't, if I lose some, I lose some.
It's only 800 crystals, when it comes to like your
Yeah,
daughter, it's
it's
it's priceless.
priceless. I'll I'll,
It's
I'll
it's
pay
totally
I'll pay a
different.
couple hundred crystals for her precious moments. But yeah, I'm on the verge of K2 finally. I've been working my way up, so
You you
I'm I'm in K3.
you might
What?
actually, well, no, I know. I was looking at my
Oh,
computer actually just turned off, but I was looking at it before. You might actually meet me soon because as I start to
ooh.
go to the bottom of K2, there might be a day where you verse me and you're like, oh man, I'm versing him. And then you go, oh shit, he's got 8
Well, if you're a
galactic legends on
turtler,
his.
then if you're a turtler, I've beaten some turtlers because most turtlers I face get stopped up on like my Malgis because I'm lucky and I haven't hit too many Calcestus owners yet. So I still
Yeah.
use them on defense liberally, and JMK still does a great job. A lot of people struggle. But
When I turtle, I'm not the guy I was talking to today. I want to finish on this because for the reasons we talked about before, but like the guy who messaged me today, who's my opponent, I had said to him, I was like, yeah, like I am Egnards, like yes, I am the math guy, and like he was talking me up, and I was like, but don't worry, like I suck at GAC, like I don't know, I throw shit at the wall, and sometimes it works, and sometimes it doesn't work, and sometimes I walk away from it, and sometimes I don't, and if I lose, I lose. If I win, I win. Like I don't care. Like
hmm
I have enough of a crystal income. I have enough um, where I can weather the storm of losing 3 in a row.
hmm
It's not.
it it's the thrill of the hunt in the moment for me. I love that challenge where it's going to be close or there's a chance I could win or lose. But overall, yeah, maybe it sucks if I did 3 losses or 6 losses in a row. But I haven't even been in jeopardy of hitting Erodium in months now. There was one time where I had a real bad streak and I pulled myself out of it. But I think you've mentioned this before online, but there's almost a less of a concern about GAC individually because everyone's kind of entrenched in where they are. And yeah, over time you could
Yes.
work your way up or might slip down, but that's not like if I have a bad day in fleets, I could be out 400 crystals or more.
Yes.
If I decided to do refreshes too and I got locked out or something, it that's 400 a day versus even if I have a bad week, what am I going to drop? 20 crystals, 50 crystals,
So that's the thing
something.
with GAC with me, and I might I'm if Conquest wasn't there, if our ROT wasn't there, if all these other times things weren't there, I might put more time into trying to get to K1 and trying to be at the top like some of the other guys in my guild. But the reality
Mm-hmm.
is, you're not really out anything because unless you're actively trying to climb to K2 or K1, which I'm not,
Mm-hmm.
you're going to get those crystals back in 3 weeks, 4 weeks.
Yeah.
It's just delayed. And so I keep enough of my crystal income as a horde that it doesn't affect me if I lose 3 in a row. Yeah, I've
Mm-hmm.
lost 5,000 crystals, but now I'm going to get that back in 3 weeks. It's basically
Yeah.
loaning those crystals to somebody else.
It's just not as I don't know. It's almost like, oh, don't tell CG, they're gonna change it all again. But it's just not as much of drive for people because of that. There's a consistent, steady beat to it. So.
Yeah, it depends. Everybody's play style is different, that, and that's what it comes down to. For me, the math is the important thing. For me, finding the ways around their system is what's important to
Mm-hmm.
me, and this is my way of finding my way around their system. I'd rather be spending my time doing something else when I
Mm-hmm.
already have to spend 2 hours a day. Because, like I'm not a guild leader, but I am an officer, and I spend an hour, 2 hours a day dealing with that stuff too. I just
You're
don't.
essentially a co-leader with the amount of duties that you shoulder on it. So
It's
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 it's taxing in that sense, yeah.
yeah.
If you don't have
Um,
if you don't have good peeps helping to support you, then
a
that's
hundred
why I'm
percent.
glad I have my number two who he came on specifically to help because I don't know if anyone could tell on Discord, but I was stressing out. I was going on a vacation where we were traveling internationally. And I'm like, I don't know if I'm gonna have good internet. I don't know if we have the plan that'll have the internet coverage in places, and we're about to start a TB, and it was during
Yeah.
Fury class when Fury was in Conquest,
So
and
not
so it
long
was
ago.
like,
Yeah.
yeah, it was this last summer, and so it's like fingers crossed, get everything gonna go, and he stepped up and he helped, and so he basically became a pillar of running the guild,
Yeah.
and it's like if I didn't have that peace of mind, and he's in a different time zone, so it really helps with watching those herding cats is how I describe running TB sometimes, because literally the first time we hit Geonosis, it's one of the most memorable moments is like, okay, guys, I've been reading you through Hoth. I've never done Geo, even back in my old days playing. No one do anything. Officers getting just lock everything down so I can get a handle on things. I've watched some videos, but I want a minute to process things once we can actually look at it, because God forbid
Yeah.
we look at the actual in-game TV before it starts. Thanks, CG. And
Yeah. Well, that's been my
immediately
thing.
somebody went deployed their crap right on mid. And I'm just like, the hell?
We have had over the years, guys, like ROT, this happened to us once. We lost a star where I had closed down a territory, and which was like maybe 5 million from a star.
Hmm.
And some hero in the guild who's not with us anymore, but not for this reason.
Yeah.
He quit the game months later. Was like, oh, I was gonna walk it up for you guys. Like, no, I closed it for a reason because I'm the officer and that's my job. Like, that's what I'm gonna do.
Hmm.
So it just so happened that as I'm walking it up, he's also going, oh, I'm gonna walk it up just for the hell of it. And
I'm
we
a
ended up getting a
hero.
star. It was that hero complex. And it
Oh,
was an accident and it was a mistake.
yeah.
We were not gonna fault him for it. He was a great member otherwise, and he quit the game maybe like 6 months ago. But it was just one of those moments where I'm like, I promise, like, when have I ever steered you guys wrong? Like, ever. Like, just
Hmm.
trust me, please, 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 please.
I
Um,
did it once myself. We like to play the game who can get the closest, and my brain, we go like, okay, my co-lead, um, Obi-Wan, he he got his record is like 2 or 3 points away from a star. And let me tell you, everyone's just posting every single GIF you can imagine of the sweating man or panic or fear or hold. Everyone's just afraid.
no,
And so I'm on another planet. I'm like, well, I could get close too. My brain, for some reason, flipped it around, and I did 1 point over.
no, I
And
don't.
I deployed it. And I'm like, what have I done?
Here's what we're gonna do to make me look good, because that's my job, right? Is to make me look good. We're gonna end on you being a dumbass, okay? And I'm gonna tell you the story of me being a dumbass, but but not on camera. So 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 we're gonna end on you being a dumbass, so that I look good, and go from there. But otherwise, I appreciate you making time to talk to me, and I know that
Mm,
we were talking back and forth beforehand. And the whole idea is like, this is supposed to be casual. It's supposed to be two people just sharing
hmm.
a drink and talking about the game and everything going on. So, especially having a kid, which I have cats, which is a totally different and much easier circumstance.
Hmm.
Um, I appreciate you sectioning that time out for me.